This is Rachel Hill with the African American Cultural Garden Sankofa web series. And in this series, we're going to highlight some of the most amazing things about Cleveland. We're going to talk to wonderful people, and you are going to learn about the history of the African American Cultural Gardens. Right now in history, this is so important to us because it looks at the past, the present, as well as the middle passage. So these are key things that people don't know about, don't study, but we're going to talk about it some more. We're going to talk about what does Black history and culture mean to our guests, mean to us, and also what does Black history mean as well as our lives continue to evolve and take place in this society as of now, from our ancestors to present day. One of the reasons why I am a part of this garden is because I believe in it, and I believe in learning about our culture, learning about our history, and also what lies in store for future generations. I actually know the president and the development chair, and once they told me about the garden, which I'd never heard of before, I was so excited to try my hand to see what I can do to help bring this to prominence. We need donations. We need to be able to grow our garden, but we're very excited to present this series to you. My co-host Kenny Hill, you're going to see some interviews with some movers and shakers in the city of Cleveland, very important people, and learn about them, and you're going to learn about the garden as well. We hope you stay tuned. Enjoy the show.
Workplace Health Incorporated is a company that focuses on improving the health and productivity of the entire working population, from hire to retire. Our professional team concentrates on occupational health, a specialty practice that focuses on preventative health care, health promotion, and health restoration within the context of a safe and healthy work environment. We support the African American Cultural Garden in Cleveland, Ohio. Congratulations on a job well done.
Hello, my name is Courtney A. Barton, and I'm the Program Director for Arts and Culture and Racial Equity Initiatives at the Cleveland Foundation. The Cleveland Foundation is proud to sponsor the Association of African American Cultural Gardens Black History and Culture webcast series. Culture is the way that we interact and make sense of the world and express ourselves. It is also an inherent human need and a basic human right enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Too often, the story of Black culture is framed as one of deprivation, but I would like to talk about the ways in which Black culture has always thrived. Take, for instance, Adinkra symbols. Now, the symbol of the African American Culture Garden is an Adinkra symbol, Sankofa bird, which is a bird that is depicted as flying forward while looking backwards. Adinkra symbols are an ancient West African writing system originating in a part of the continent that is also known for its ironworkers. Now, when these ironworkers were kidnapped from their ancestral lands and brought to this continent to help build this country, they often embedded Adinkra symbols in the iron that they wrought. So if you ever have the opportunity to visit an antebellum or colonial building, take a close look at the wrought iron you may find in gates and fences. Rather than a series of decorative shapes, it's often Adinkra symbols you will be looking at. And though you may not understand the meaning of each individual symbol, the overall message to take is that our ancestors survived and retained their and our culture and managed to create great beauty in the midst of the most adverse circumstances. I believe this is the work of the Association of African American Cultural Gardens.
This is Rachel Hill with the African American Cultural Gardens Black History and Culture web series. And today we are here with Dr. Alex Johnson, the president of Tri-C.
Yes.
How are you today, Dr.
I'm doing very well, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
So can you start off telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, there's not much to tell.
Maybe get the scroll out? Or no?
I don't think so, but currently I serve as president at Cuyahoga Community College. I'm in my 9th year at that institution and my 28th year as a college president somewhere. This is my second stint at Tri-C. In fact, I served as president of the Metropolitan Campus from 1993 until 2004. Then moved to New Orleans and became president of Delgado Community College. Back to Pittsburgh, where I served as president at the Community College of Allegheny County. And at that time, back in 2013, I returned to Cleveland to serve as president of Tri-C.
Now, where are you from? Where were you born at?
I'm from a small stamp of a segregated town in North Carolina called Concord. Um, it was a community that really valued its culture, its history, and I grew up among individuals that served as a kind of village to give me all of what I needed to be successful.
And I noticed that you did attend an HBCU.
I did.
What was that experience like?
Oh, yes. I attended Winston-Salem State University. And first, my intent was not to go to college at all. I would have been comfortable buying a 1967 Mustang and working in the cotton mills. But I had people in my family who had gone on to Winston-Salem State before me, and they helped me understand the power and the value and the purpose of a college education. And I wound up following in their footsteps to Winston-Salem State University.
And then you went and got your doctorate from Penn State University?
Yeah, before I earned my doctorate, I attended Lehman College, which is one of the constituent institutions of the City University of New York. And after I completed that degree, I went out to Penn State and earned my doctorate, yes.
You know we're not fans of Pennsylvania at all around
well,
here.
You know, but you have to be, given the fact that Cleveland attracts so many people from different places, I would like very much for you to be cordial, particularly for me, since this is my 21st year in Greater Cleveland.
What is it about Cleveland that attracted you to Cleveland?
Well, there's a lot that attracts me about Cleveland. I think it reminds me more of my hometown than you would imagine. The sense of community, I talked a little bit about that. The opportunities that it provides educationally, and I believe very, very strongly the focus on community and the opportunity to engage and contribute in meaningful ways. That's why I love Cleveland. My family is here. My grandchildren live in Geauga County, which is close by. My son is a police officer with the Metro Parks and has been for the last 25 years. And my daughter, Dr. Kim Johnson, works at Tri-C as an assistant dean. So everything and everybody is here for me.
What was it about education that made you choose that as your career?
Well, when I grew up in Concord, a little segregated town as I indicated, you could not move throughout the community and benefit from all of the things that it had to offer. But where I lived in my small little community, we had our own library, which provided access to information and enlightenment, gave you an opportunity to join the world of ideas and the life of the mind. The school that I went to was for black folk only, and the books were handed down to us from the white kids. But even in that context, I was able to learn so much, once again, about English literature and science and mathematics. In my church, I recall in high school, my grandmother, through the Wilhelmina Harris Circle, held a chicken dinner to help raise money for my scholarship support at Winston-Salem State University. So that sense of community and engagement was very, very important to me growing up. And I get that sense in Cleveland as well.
You said the books were handed down to you.
Yes.
From the white schools.
Yes.
Were these books written by the Daughters of the Confederacy and things of that nature?
You know, I really didn't think about that at the time. The only thing that I had was a thirst for knowledge. So the history that was in that book, that's what I learned about. It wasn't until later on that it was not necessarily true, all was written and provided in terms of knowledge, but at least it gave me a start in understanding the purpose for education and where and the impact that it had on me, but not only me but my community as well.
Outside of Cleveland, you've listed some other experiences that you had. What would you say the other locations you've been at that have had a profound impact on you as well?
Well, all of them have in some way, shape, or form, but I would be remiss if I did not recount my experience at Delgado Community College in New Orleans, particularly during the onslaught caused by Hurricane Katrina. it closed down not only my college, but the city as well for at least 4 weeks. But when I returned, there was a renewed sense of purpose because the people who were impacted by the hurricane mostly were the ones that were economically disadvantaged or people of color. And I knew that I had a responsibility to them to get the college opened as quickly as we possibly could. And we did that. And so I learned a great deal from that experience. So now we're going through COVID-19, and it reminds me to an extent of the type of leadership that was necessary to get us through that Katrina period.
Yeah, and it's very, just the irony of the parallels of where we're at now, how this COVID is affecting the same population again. And
it just magnifies the disparities, and that's the most difficult thing for me about this. It just reminds us of how far we have to go as a community to ensure that individuals are educated, that they receive the health care that they need, that they're given life-sustaining needs, that they're met, food, housing, and things of that sort as well.
And what is it that you love about Tri-C?
Well, I love everything about Tri-C, but the thing I love most are the people, like Ken Hell, who is really involved in the cultural gardens. I've known Ken for many, many years, going on maybe 25 or so, when we together first established the High Tech Academy as the only high school located on a college campus in Cleveland back in those days. And he did a masterful job and continues to do so through his efforts in the community.
What does Black history and culture mean to you?
Black history and culture. Well, I think I talked a little bit about that. But when all else fails, when everything just goes completely dark in your life, you can always rely on the culture and the people that have made a difference in your life. I talked about that sense of community. I talked about recognizing the contributions of Black folk throughout time in science and entertainment, and the list goes on and on and on. And then, of course, the opportunity to really treat the most serious matters in your life, almost with not disdain, but laughter. And Black folk, we laugh about a lot of things, to keep from crying, even in the most difficult moments of our lives.
You mentioned growing up in segregated North Carolina and that you thought you were going to work in cotton.
Yes.
For you, what was it like to try to have that identity and culture when so many people fought against who you were? So were you part of Jim Crow and had experienced that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, growing up.
Because you look really young, so. Well,
thank you for that, but I'm up in age. It's the experiences that I had growing up remind me that we don't ever want to go back there, even though it was an opportunity for us to benefit culturally from that experience. It's a place where you never want to return. It was a dark time in Black life and history and culture. So I recall going to a department store with my family to shop for school clothes, and we could not try those clothes on. We just had to purchase them right out. So if they fit, great. If they didn't, then that was your loss. I recall not being able to go to certain movies in my hometown. There was one movie that you could attend, and and what you'd have to do is sit up in the balcony. So it's really interesting. This transpired before 1965. before the Voters' Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. When I returned to my hometown later on, after living in New York for a while, I was able to sit in that theater on the floor that was once occupied by white folk only. So that experience was interesting to me, but we never want to go back there. But I do believe very, very strongly there needs to be a collective effort on the part of black people to support black folk, given our tradition. But we also recognize that the world is changing, and we have to change with it and have diverse attitudes and values that move us forward, but at the same time, honoring who we are as a people.
Can you talk about, do you know about the vanilla ice cream?
Vanilla ice cream.
That black people weren't allowed to have vanilla ice cream back then, only on the 4th of July. That wasn't something that you had to do?
No, but I recall that there were certain things that the white kids could do that we couldn't do, and when you could do them, there was a time set aside for you, maybe one day out of the month or something like that. Like I remember watching TV, and there was this dance program before Soul Train called Kilgo's Canteen, and it came on, I believe, every Saturday afternoon around 3 o'clock. Once a month, they allowed the students from Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, which is close by Concord, to be on the show. You know, the county fair, for example, black folk could only attend Saturday afternoons from Saturdays from 10 until about 6 o'clock. That was the only time you were permitted to come. So while I did not know about the vanilla ice cream story, I do recognize that there were certain things that you could not do because you were black.
What does the garden mean to you, Dr. Johnson?
The garden means a lot, and as I drive by it, the gardens generally, it's the one that I look for more than any other one, because number one, it is a place that is concrete, that represents African American culture and life. That's critically important to me. I think the other piece is that it's tangible evidence that black folk are in a position to support something so viable in our community. And I think the third piece for me is that it is a history lesson for young people to help them understand that before they were born, there was challenge and controversy that they need to know about so that they don't repeat that in the future. So it means a lot to me, but those three things in particular.
Yeah, because when I'm talking to you now, and when I look at the garden, what it's going to be, I think about people like yourself and what you had to experience to make things better for me.
Right.
So I just, I'm so appreciative of you, and I'm sorry for that experience. And,
oh, no, you don't have to apologize.
And hopefully, but we do, because you guys did so much for the younger generation.
Well, first of all, I think the important thing to remember about it, Rachel, is that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Mm-hmm. And I think that people who went through that and who are going through similar kinds of situations today will come out much, much stronger on the end. I think it's an attribute, a character in our people that sometimes we overlook, their resilience and their ability to take advantage of opportunity.
And when you look at the garden, what do you think?
I just think that it is, number one, an important reminder of all the things that I've already talked about, but it gives us hope for the future. And I think the opportunity to really build on a great solid foundation of cultural heritage that will serve us steadfastly now and moving forward.
And hopefully future generations.
And future generations, absolutely.
So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, well, thank you,
today.
Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Inspiring the rest of us and telling us about your life. We appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you.
And this is Rachel Hill for the African American Gardens Cultural History Series.
Hi, Hi, my name is Levita Ewing from the Association of African American Cultural Garden, and I'm here to ask you to join the movement to help us to complete your garden, the African American Garden, which is one of 36 gardens in the Cleveland Federation of Cultural Gardens here in Cleveland, Ohio. Our garden represents the past, the present, and the future. The past pavilion has already been built. It represents our ancestors going through a doorway and a corridor of no return. Water will cascade down underneath a 50-foot granite place where our ancestors have emerged here in this country to the top of every level in music, science, education, medicine, with a vision for the future, which is our future generation. What a wonderful way to support this part of our history by donating to the African American Cultural Garden. All donations are tax deductible. Go to AAACG.org for your contribution. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back everyone. I'm KD Hale. This is the Association of African American Cultural Gardens webcast series. Today we have with us Mrs. Dessie Sanders, principal of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and she'll let us know which school. And thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Like you said, my name is Dessie Sanders. I'm the principal actually of Daniel Morgan School, and I've been there for 6 years.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was at Michael R. White for 11 years. I'm a Cleveland transplant, so I moved here 30 years ago. This is my 30th year in education, starting the school year off. So I've been here 30 years. I've taught 8th grade, 2nd grade, even actually taught some teachers how to use computers and technology. So I was the technology coordinator at Empire Computech Center prior to becoming assistant principal, and I've been a principal for 20 years, so it's been a long time.
Yes, yes, a long-time educator and administrator in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, so thank you. So thank you for sharing a little bit about your background, but tell us, are you from Cleveland? And tell us about your early days.
Oh,
just
great.
briefly summarize who Miss Dessie Sanders is.
Okay, real good. So good question. I would say that education was my calling. So I'm probably one of the few people who you would talk to and they would say that they always wanted to be a teacher. So even in 2nd grade, I can remember, teachers asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I've always said I wanted to be a teacher.
Wow.
And it just stuck with me when I got to 12th grade and we started talking about college with my parents, my family. what do you want to be? And I said, a teacher. And everybody just hit the floor. Oh, don't be a teacher. There's no money in teaching.
Wow.
You go into technology. So technology was the actual thing to do. You know, when I was coming out of school, and I stuck with education. So I always tell people it's my calling. And I believe I'm supposed to be in Cleveland, because as I was growing up, I always told people I was going to live in Florida. Beg, steal, rob, kill. I had to be in Florida. It was warmer than Alabama. I love the heat. And when I finished school, I had several interviews, had an opportunity to go to Florida, and for some odd reason, I'm in Cleveland, where it is extremely cold.
Yes.
And I cannot adjust to it. But here I am. So people ask me, why did you come to Cleveland? And I always say, God brought me here.
Amen.
I'd never stepped foot in Cleveland, so that was another thing that I thought was unique. I'd never been to Cleveland a day in my life. Had no relatives here, and my recruiter came. They recruited heavily, and was really good to us. And I moved to Cleveland, took a chance, came to Cleveland, and Cleveland has been good to me.
Okay,
really
outstanding. Well, thank you for making Cleveland your home.
Yes.
After 30 plus years.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about your college days, and
oh wow.
And then let's talk about your career as an educator, just your perspective, and then I want to transition to about African American history and your perspectives on that.
Okay, sure. So college was great. If people was to ask me to name one part of your life where you would go back to, I would say go back to my college years. Growing up as a kid, I was really quiet. Mm-hmm. So in fact, a lot of people that met me thought I couldn't talk. That's just how quiet I was in school, especially in school. I always took education seriously.
Yes.
You know, during the school hours, I was not a social person, you know, although I was in the band. At band practice, I was a totally different person, but during the school hours, I was totally quiet. I didn't talk. In fact, my parents were afraid for me to leave the city of Birmingham, because they said, going up north, the people are mean, you got to be tough, and they had no idea. Mm-hmm. When I went to college, I had no idea of the leadership abilities that I had until I got to college.
Wow.
And I discovered that people were listening to me. Even if I was joking around and made suggestions, they followed. Mm-hmm. So I developed and discovered my leadership skills at Alabama A&M University. I was a member of the band. I later became the vice president of our band organization, member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated,
yes.
Member of the Martin Luther King Jr. Service Organization. I participated in a lot of organizations, and was always, at some point, became the leader of that organization at some point. So,
that's a wonderful story. And we know that there may be viewers of the webcast series that have children who are quiet, but there's nothing wrong with that. They have leadership potential. They may have leadership potential within them. What instrument did you play in the band?
Okay, I originally started off with clarinet, so I was in marching band since 4th grade, marched with the clarinet. When I got into the 11th grade, my band director started to talk about playing different instruments. Mm-hmm. So he started me out with the baritone. My senior year, I played baritone and French horn. When I went to college, because we had a zillion clarinet players and not so many French horn players, I played the French horn. So I had a scholarship in the band, played the French horn, marched with the mellophone. So
outstanding.
Exciting college days, very exciting. Yes.
So tell us about the HBCU experience you had at Alabama A&M University.
Oh wow, there's nothing like it. Even to this day, I still have friends that we get together every year, homecoming every single year. It's just the love that's there, and the way that the teachers, the professors just wrap their arms around you and really make sure that you're successful. I mean, we talk about everything. You know, there could be some issues at home, and of course you have that professor there that knows your name, or they can tell if there's something going on with you, or they pull you aside and say, hey, listen, I noticed that you're doing this. That's not normally what I see you do.
Yes.
What's going on? And I think that's important for kids when they go away to college, to have someone to that they can talk to share ideas, you know, discuss, even if it's personal, private. They can feel comfortable enough to go to you and talk to you about it, tell them about it.
So relationships are important.
Oh yes, extremely important.
Outstanding. So please share with our viewers a little bit about African American history and your perspectives on African American history.
I just feel like I think sometimes that as I'm dealing with the younger people, that they somehow got lost. And I think about when I was growing up, and I really never thought about, you know, we read about Dr. King, but I never thought how close it was to our time.
Yes.
But just growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, it gave me a different perspective, and I see there a huge difference growing up in Birmingham, and even talking to my husband who grew up in Talladega.
Okay.
And so I see how our teachers like really pushed education and pushed respect and demanded respect, that you, A, you respect everyone, and B, you don't let anyone disrespect you. And so I can remember even in the 6th grade, my teacher saying, and I didn't realize until now why she was telling us this, but she was saying if someone called you and they call you by your first name, then you call them by their first name. And so she made sure, like in Alabama, and a lot of people up north probably aren't accustomed to the yes ma'am, no ma'am, or I've learned since I've been here that it's not a custom of northern society to say yes ma'am, no ma'am. And so one of the things when I learned quickly when I was teaching 8th grade here is that I had my kids, I demanded my students to say yes ma'am and no ma'am. And a lot of the parents took offense to it, like, oh, you saying like that's putting us down? And so I had to learn the culture of the two. But I think it's important that our kids, through African American history, I think if they understood their history, and a lot of kids, I think, maybe more so because they grew up in a different era and they didn't experience, or their parents didn't experience, some of the racism or the lack of respect that our parents, my husband talks about how even in the 90s, his parents were still going to this store called the Ark in Talladega, but they had to go to the back door. Wow. And I said, that's unbelievable.
In the 90s?
It was 1990, wow. And they were going to, and I said, I couldn't believe it. But just because, and I think growing up in Birmingham, they really stressed the importance of your history. Know your history. And I think because our kids don't know much about their history, and a lot of times we're kind of marginalized when we're studying American history. African American kids basically get to see a lot of negative about what went on, and so they really don't know the history. But I think it's important that we, as adults, as even teenagers, they can get on the internet and learn everything else. They need to find some time to study the history of African Americans so that they can see that we were more than slaves. We were more than victims of the Jim Crow laws. There were a lot of people, that stood up and fought. And so sometimes we think of other races as against us, and that's not always true either.
Right.
So in learning American history, you got to learn African American history.
Yes.
Because we are American history, if you really think about it. There would be no America without African Americans.
Correct.
It would not be. So it's important for us to understand that and learn to value what we contribute to this country.
It's interesting. Everything you said has been interesting. And when you talked about the source of learning for African American history, the internet, but are there other places where if there's parents out there that want to teach their children a little bit more about African American history and the parents may not know themselves, they can learn together?
Oh, sure. I think there's a ton of books out there.
Yes.
There's a ton of books. Library. Go to library.
Yes.
There's an African American. You have the African American Cultural Society.
Yes.
And we're talking here. Get to know them. A lot of people don't know that we exist. And I think that's important. Just getting out, and I think when we grow an interest for it, then we really would seek out more information.
Correct. And do you have any person in history that's appealing to you more so than anybody else?
There's a number of people, but if I think Carter G. Woodson, who I always quote, and I just love, he said that you control a man thinking, you control his actions. And I think that's where we are, why we are where we are.
Yes. Because
mentally we're in this state that we can't do this. And sometimes we don't go out and try. Just thinking about owning your own business. There's a lot of African Americans who have a lot of ideas, great ideas for businesses, but they don't go out to seek it because they feel like, well, I don't have the money to start this business. That's mental. That's a mental state that I can't. Instead of saying, let me go out here and see. There's a lot of money available to African Americans who have a business plan and is ready.
Yes.
But we can't get past that state that we're not supposed to have these things and we're not supposed to do these things. And so encouragement, we need encouragement. A lot of times we lack encouragement. And again, mentally, we have our thinking. We have controlled our thinking. And in the book, Carter G. Wilson talks about just what I just told you about, the people going in 1990 still going to the door.
Yes.
To the back door. Why are you going to the back door in
I'm familiar with
1990?
one of his books, The Miseducation of the Negro,
Yes.
Dr. Carter G. Woodson.
Yes,
Outstanding
yes,
resource.
yes.
And you're right about libraries, either the Cleveland Public Library, County Public Library, across the nation, across the world, there's libraries, and people can use that as a resource, a free resource as well.
Yes.
So tell me about your affiliation with the African American Cultural Gardens. Have you had any affiliation with the Gardens?
Actually, I have. We've been affiliated with the Gardens. I was at, like I said, Michael R. White for probably maybe 10 years ago.
Yes.
We work together. We do the One World tour every year. And so our kids actually would lead that program with the Pledge of Allegiance. We've also had the opportunity with some students that we worked, collaborated with Hawkins, and we actually took care of the American gardens prior to the African Americans gardens actually sitting. Now we've gotten started, so it took us a while to get started. But I look forward to having students participate and actually help with the African American gardens as well. So
outstanding. We have an ambassadors program with the African American Cultural Gardens, and it's designed to engage young people, youth and young adults as well, into taking care of our garden, because it is our garden.
Right.
Anything in closing you want to share with our audience, our viewers, about African American history, about the importance of education?
I would just encourage everyone, as an educator for 30 years, probably the most disheartening is to see that our kids don't engage and don't value education. I would like to see more kids just really taking education seriously and taking ownership of their own education. So I would encourage all parents, students, parents particularly, to just continue to talk to your scholars about the importance of education. To me, education is the divider breaker. It's the breaker. A lot of people ask me about, what do you think about testing and why is all this testing? I said, I have no problem with testing, but to me, testing is the equalizer. If a student in Beechwood makes a 400 on a test and a kid in Cleveland makes a 400 on a test, it's the same test. It's the equalizer. So I just think education is so important, and it is the key to our future. And so we really encourage everyone to just be more vigilant in gaining your education. If you're in a classroom and you don't feel like the teacher's doing what they're supposed to do, speak up and speak out and demand that you're taught.
Outstanding. High expectations. Well, thank you so much. And we are so happy in Cleveland that you've chosen Cleveland as your home for 3 decades, being from the South, and also that you follow your passion and vocation about education, and you've known that all your life you wanted to be an educator, and you went for it. So thank you. Thank you for changing the lives and improving the lives of thousands of young people in Cleveland and beyond, and even educators as well. So
thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from Dessie Sanders, principal in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District at Daniel E. Morgan School in Cleveland, and we thank you for joining us. For the Association of African American Cultural Gardens, we want you to connect with the African American Cultural Gardens, get in contact with us, become involved. We want to increase our membership. I'm K.D. Hale. More from the webcast series on the other side.
Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode and you learned a little bit more about our garden and people in our community. Please sow a seed and watch us grow. You can go to our website to donate, and also our social media links will appear below so you can get caught up on all the updates at the garden and see what we're doing. Please stay tuned for further episodes that you will enjoy in the future. Sow a seed and watch us grow.